freaking lollies, man. You know, I know I gotta do it. It's basically my job at this point, but there are some parts of anime I stay away from for a reason. In fact, I was all ready to drop Kobayashi the second Kana showed up, okay? You know, just don't trust lollies. They turn out to be evil like 862% of the time. This has been mathematically proven. But I guess I gotta talk about it because today's video is centered around the hobby no mi and its user, Sugar. I'm watching you. Alright, so, right, this is actually one of the more interesting, but also one of the more broken and overpowered devil fruits in the entire story, because it grants the user not one, not two, but three, possibly four, different abilities that don't really seem to interconnect. Well, they connect, I guess, over a common theme, but when you combine them all together, it just seems rather overpowered and broken, okay? So, basically, the deal with Sugar, to give you a refresher, you know, Dressrosa, you know, the longest arc in One Piece, it lasted 100 chapters, really fleshed out the character of Doflamingo. You could tell Oda was really proud of this. This is something he was probably, you know, gearing up for a while to showcase an arc focused around one of the 7 warlords of the sea that we've seen before this, but never really got a real chance to shine in a big way. Doflamingo, right? And Doflamingo, it actually turns out, you know, he's not ruling Dressrosa with like an iron fist. He's not like some kind of evil king. I mean, he kind of is, but he has charisma. He's good at playing a crowd, you know what I mean? So he has this entire island under his control, but it also has a sense of whimsy and wonder, because anybody that's traveling to Dressrosa, they would see all the, you know, the attractive women dancing in the streets and all the great food, and you got a coliseum for fights and shit, and you also have toys just wandering around the entire island, just, you know, animate toys that have their own personalities, that are capable of speech, that are just there to be like Disney World, you know, except, you know, not as cheesy. It's way, you know, way more entertaining, because the toys are basically there to be your servants, and it's just all fun and happy because you have a bunch of goofy, hey look, there's a Jack-in-a-Box just walking down the road, oh that's hilarious, you know, let's get a picture in front of it, honey, whatever. But then, in typical Oda fashion, he finds a way to spin this on its head, and this bright, happy, cheery place full of toys and fun turns out to be pretty dark. There's an underworld literally underneath the island. There's a hidden port where Doflamingo ships out weapons and illegal, you know, like not narcotics, but you never know, like chemicals and stuff, as well as smiles, which are artificial devil fruits. And the labor force which is used for all this shipping are the toys. And then you find out the kicker. The toys are a artificial race that are manufactured via a devil fruit, just like how the zombies on Thriller Bark were manufactured or created through Gecko Moria's Kage no Mi, or how later on in Totland you have the Soul fruit that Big Mom has, that she's allowed to create homies, which is another race. Sugar, through the Hobby no Mi, can create a race of toys, literally turning human beings as well as animals into toys, and then she can enact a contract upon them so that they have to literally listen to everything she says. They are literally incapable of doing anything that goes against the contract. And the sickest part of this whole thing is, actually there's two parts that are rather disturbing. One of them is that the people that get turned into toys still have their own personality, but they can't act against the contract. So inside, they can still think about who they are, and oh my god, I can't believe I'm being trapped in this fucking toy, like this form, kind of like locked-in syndrome, where you're still aware of you're aware that you're like conscious and everything, and you can see what's going on, but you just can't move. You know, that's pretty scary. And even worse than that, and this is where we get into kind of overpowered territory, is that anybody that gets turned into a toy, the memories of that person's existence get immediately wiped from everybody on the planet. Everybody that's ever met that individual before, whether it be just, you know, just a casual acquaintance, or a best friend, or a lover, or a child, immediately forgotten. So Sugar, you know, turns a husband of a family of 5 into a toy. The wife immediately forgets about him, as well as all the kids. And I guess they just manufacture their own memories to compensate for why I have 5 kids and no husband. Like, oh, he left a while ago, yeah. So that's pretty ridiculous right away, how the devil fruit affects people that never actually came in contact with Sugar, for one thing. You know, so somebody could run into like Joe Smith on Dressrosa and become good friends with them and then travel the world into another island, and whenever Sugar transforms Joe Smith into like an inanimate nutcracker doll or whatever, the guy that met him, even though he could be hundreds, maybe thousands of miles away on another island, just immediately forgets about Joe Smith's existence. So that's pretty nuts. Now, the power isn't like, it doesn't affect things that are like statues. Like, so a statue of Kyros was built in Dressrosa, and even though Sugar turned Kyros into a toy, one of the first toys actually, the statue doesn't like disappear from existence, but people just assume like, oh, this is just a mythical character that once, was thought up, or maybe he existed, maybe he didn't, but nobody really knows anything about him. It's just a statue that's here. So the power's not absolute, but it's pretty damn close to it. To the point that even if you tell the person directly, like, that's your husband being turned into a toy, your memories were erased, they're not going to just magically come back. They're not going to be like, oh, wait, I think I sort of remember. No. So it's pretty close to being ironclad there. We don't know for certain if this affects Sugar as well. Like, if Sugar can't remember the person she turned into toys as well. I'm not sure about that, but pretty much everybody else, it's very clear. Even if you actually witness who got turned into the toy directly in front of you, like Treble was right there when Sugar turned Cavendish into a toy, and even though it happened right in front of Treble's eyes, the second that he was turned into a toy, Treble completely forgot who you are. Like, I don't even know who you were. Get to work. So yeah, that's pretty nuts. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there with turning into toys and memory erasure, which those are two powers that I don't really think, you really can't connect those all that well. Usually devil fruits follow like a specific theme, like Law's Oppi Oppi no Mi follows the theme of being a doctor, so all of his techniques might be a little different, like, shambles and, being able to like swap personalities and like electrical abilities, like, his counter shock, and then he has like radiation abilities like Gamma Knife, but they all fall under one category of things that you would find, in a hospital, or things that a doctor would perform, surgery. And it's easy to look at Sugar's devil fruit kind of like that, like it falls under the purview of being a child, playing with your toys when you're a kid, hobby no mi. And that clicks for the next thing I'm going to tell you, that the fruit offers you eternal youth. Whenever you eat the fruit, you halt aging at that point, and you stay at that age, I guess, for the rest of your life. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're immortal. You can make, like, if a human in One Piece can live upwards of 140 years, Sugar might only be able to live up to the average lifespan of a human, 140 years. It's just that she's stuck in the body of an 8-year-old that entire time. Doesn't necessarily make you immortal. So, that makes sense. Turning things into toys, eternal youth, because children play with toys and stuff like that, makes sense. But then you get to the memory manipulation, and that doesn't really connect too much, you know what I mean? Like, it's really kind of hard. I mean, you could throw something in there like, a child's imagination has infinite possibilities, or some sentimental bullshit like that, but it really does feel like Oda was setting up Sugar to be such a central point of the Dressrosa arc, such a central keystone for how that this island operates, with all these toys wandering around, and how nobody just questions it. He had to come up with an extra power for Sugar involving memory manipulation. Now, I would say, why couldn't you just come up with a devil fruit that has that? But then we later find out in Totland that there's a devil fruit user, Pudding, that has the Memo no Mi that can affect memories, so maybe Oda wanted to save that. But yeah, I mean, you could maybe, devil fruits, there are devil fruits that have similar abilities, but they're just a little bit different. I don't know, so maybe you could have had Sugar with the Hobby no Mi that turns people into toys, and then you could have had, like, another member of the Don Quixote family that has another devil fruit that affects memories, but that might be kind of bogarting on on Pudding's territory there, so I can understand why Oda did it, because I guess it would raise too many questions, and that's the whole thing he was going for. Like, the toys on this island are actually the former citizens here, and that's the big moment, like, at the halfway point in the arc, whenever Sugar gets knocked unconscious and her devil fruit power is released, and all the members of the island get turned from toys back into humans. That leads to the big final battle, and that's what gets, Doflamingo so fucking pissed off, because his entire plans, everything that he's worked for the past 10 years, is just ruined because because of God Usopp, you know. So that leads into the like, okay, the fucking kitty gloves are off now. It's time for an all-out war, which was cool, which was awesome, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's possibly a fourth ability too, if you want to include eternal youth, turning into toys, memory manipulation, and the contract that Sugar has. Because in my opinion, you know, turning somebody into a toy, that seems like an ability on of itself, but then, you know, making like a contract with that toy, like not even really a contract, more of just like, you're a robot and I'm gonna tell you what to do and what you can't do, and you can't go against that. There's even some comparisons between Sugar's Devil Fruit ability, the toys, and Asimov's, you know, 3 laws of robotics. You can read into that. So maybe that's something going forward there. But you could maybe spin that with the whole overarching theme of childlike aspects that the fruit represents. Like, you know, you're a little kid, you come up with rules for your games and your toys and stuff like that. Maybe you could spin that. But the memory thing, that's kind of off to the side there. So let's talk about something here that it might look incredibly powerful. You know, it looked like this fruit grants you so many abilities. It's a really OP fruit. You're not wrong about that, but there are some aspects about it that are not that great. Some things that might be more detrimental to you. And one of the things is that eternal youth idea. Okay, so if you could stop aging at any point in your life, what age would you want to stop at? I highly doubt it would be the age of fucking 8. Alright, now Sugar ate her fruit at that age, so she's stuck like that. So we can assume that if you ate the fruit, like if I ate the fruit right now at age 24, I would just remain 24 the rest of my life. You know, I think that's the age that I think a lot of people would pick, you know, probably in your 20s, maybe in your early 30s, something like that. So Sugar is stuck in the body of an 8-year-old. Now, she is technically 22 years old, but she's stuck in this, like, body where she can't do a lot of stuff with it. Now, she's not as weak as you might think. Can use her ability to, like, attack multiple characters at the same time that were all trying to, like, jump her, and she can use her ability super fast. I don't know if that's more of a saying for her ability or for her own physical powers, but she certainly doesn't like being called weak. She doesn't like being called, you know, frail or anything like that, but there are certain limits against going against her. You know, I don't think you would have a problem with Sugar in a straight-up fist fight, you know what I mean? So you're stuck in this form, and you got to be careful with whatever age you eat the fruit, because you don't want to end up, you know, stuck in a child's body the rest of your life. And another thing that goes along with that is you might think that, well, Sugar is 22 years old, so she has the intelligence of a 22-year-old, so she can use her childlike body as sort of like a feint. She can use that as like, oh yes, I'm gonna act like an innocent child, but in reality I actually have all these, I'm like a Machiavellian schemer up here, you know, because I'm a lot older than I let on. We don't really get to see that too much from Sugar. We get to see that like one time, kind of, where she pretends to be a lost child and she starts bawling her eyes out so Luffy and Law will get close to her so she can use her devil fruit. But beyond that, we don't really get to see her use like that intelligence to any... She's actually sort of like a brat, to be honest with you. She seems like a spoiled fucking brat, who doesn't seem to exhibit a lot of emotion for a lot of people, seems rather conceited. Even characters like Treble. Treble's supposed to be like her guardian and shit. She finds him disgusting, doesn't really like to hang out with a lot of people, keeps to herself mostly and her toys. She seems okay with Doflamingo. The first time we see Sugar, she's sitting right next to Doflamingo there in Dressrosa, but she acts like a rather conceited, bratty 8-year-old, if we're being honest with you. So I don't know if that's just like, after being stuck in that body for so long, she just ended up not really going much beyond that, because, you know, she was stopped at age 8, so, you know, she never really grew up. She never went through her teenage years or anything like that, so maybe she just adopted the mentality of an 8-year-old her entire life. Even though she is technically 22, her, you know, the way that her brain developed, or her mindset developed, was not going to be the same way as most people that got to that age, because she never went through a lot of those milestones of growth. So you might be able to outsmart her too if you're clever enough. You know, the only thing that she could think of is, I'm going to pretend to be a crying innocent girl and I'm going to use my devil fruit on you. You know, you could have maybe spun that in a way where it's like, so she's like a genius, you know, and she's pretending to be a child in demeanor, but in reality she's got all these master plans and everything. But we don't have that. We just don't have that. Oh, by the way, she's also the sister of Monet. Doesn't really involve a lot of stuff, but yeah, Monet and Sugar were sisters and were picked up by Doflamingo, and they became part of the family. So there you go, that's that. Also with Sugar, we've seen that if she gets rendered unconscious, the abilities of her toy power and her memory power, as well as the contract, that all disappear immediately. So whenever she's rendered unconscious, all the people that she turned into toys over the span of years, they get turned back into humans, all of the memories return to everybody at once, and they're free from the contract. But the eternal youth thing still stands. So even after getting knocked out, it's not like she turns back into a 22-year-old into her body. She remains a child. So that's a weird idea. It's like, it's either one or the other. Go big or go home. Either all of her abilities are negated when she gets knocked out, or none of them are. Don't do like, oh, okay, some of her abilities are negated when she's unconscious, some of them aren't. And that's always been a question, you know, like, devil fruit abilities are negated if the user is rendered unconscious. You know, like, because you always question, like with Big Mom. Big Mom has the soul fruit. She has the ability to throw souls into other inanimate objects or animals, pretty much anything except for humans and corpses, and to bring them to life with her soul power. But you question, like, alright, well, when she's asleep, it still stays constant, even if she's asleep. I mean, you're not unconscious, but you're not aware of your surroundings when you're sleeping, so that's kind of an iffy zone. But then you have the times when she's rendered into, like, a fucking frenzy, when, like, her Mother Caramel picture was destroyed, and she's like, ah! You know, even if she's in a very kind of, you know, mentally unstable state, even then, the homies that she created will stay constant. They will stay active. Okay, but then you get other devil fruits where they're rendered unconscious, the ability stops, other devil fruits rendered unconscious, ability still stands. I don't know, that also seems like something that Oda came up with, like, we need a way for her ability to be negated. And let's just throw unconscious in there because of that. I think maybe it would have made more sense for there to be, like, for Sugar to disengage the ability herself, and figure out some way to coerce her into doing that. Maybe even figuring out a way to trick her into doing that, because like I said, she kind of has the mentality of an 8-year-old sometimes, like rather bratty, rather arrogant. So if you did something to her that, you know, a child would find, like, super scary, maybe then she would, like, I deactivate my power, you know, something like that. But, you know, we needed the moment with Usopp. The moment with Usopp was hilarious when the Tanta Tabasco sauce was put into his mouth, and you get that amazing scene right there. I really need a wall scroll of that. Oh, another concern is that the toys, they have a free will unless the contract is placed on them. So in a situation like Heroes, whenever he gets transformed into the toy soldier, he actually managed to avoid getting a contract placed on them. Sugar actually has to have physical contact with the toy and then bestow the contract. Kyros managed to get away, so he was still stuck as a toy, but he still had his own agency. He could still go wherever he wanted, do whatever he needed to do. He could still speak to people and tell them everything that he needs to tell them, even though they don't believe him. He was still able to do that stuff. So you got to be very careful about that as well if you have this fruit. If the toy gets away, or if you get distracted, then you know, even the toy might be able to actually physically harm you if you're not quick enough with the transformation. Most people get kind of stunned when they all of a sudden get turned into like a Raggedy Andy doll. So they're like, wait, what the hell? Contract? Oh shit. But I guess Kyros, you know, he managed to escape before that happened, so that's a concern there as well as getting knocked unconscious. And no matter how many toys that you make, even over the course of like 10 years, the more you make, the more risky it is whenever you get knocked unconscious and all these people get turned back into humans, and the first thing they want to do is beat the fuck out of you for turning them into a freaking toy. So there are some concerns with this, but hey, I mean, if you eat the fruit at the right time of your life, where you have have eternal youth and it's not encumbering, and because you figure if you're older, you can protect yourself. You know, Doflamingo was really worried about Sugar because she was so young that she was you know, she could be targeted and attacked rather easily. So that's why he had Treble watching her constantly. But if you eat the fruit when you're older, you know, you could, you know, have your own way to protect yourself and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much everything about Sugar's Devil Fruit ability. I mean, she has various abilities where, like, she'll actually turn people into specific toys. Like, she has, like, the Little Black Bear's ability where she kind of moves her hands around. Like, once again, she was, you know, all these Tontatas that are pretty small, she was able to turn them all into toys and touch them fast enough. So she has decent speed, if nothing else. But, you know, physically, she's rather weak. But it was an interesting Devil Fruit if, you know, Oda did have to add some things into it that seemed rather, you know, just for plot convenience sake. But it was, I liked her arc, it was cool, I guess. Thanks for watching, everybody. And what do you think about Sugar's Hobby Nomi? Do you think it's broken? Do you think it makes perfect sense? Would you like to have it? Stuff like that. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. And always remember, don't trust the lollies. Don't do it.